Hello and welcome everyone to the Maine Event. Hello, JoEllen, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm great. And as we were talking before we went on there, how much fun we have doing these sessions, and particularly this subject. Oh, it's a biggie.
It is a biggie. So while everyone's joining the room, just having a look, we've got a few more people to jump in. So we'll just do a bit of housekeeping. So the Maine Event is around 30 to 40 minutes. It comprises of JoEllen and I this week. JoEllen's my special guest, and our topic is Leadership 101. And hopefully this is going to be the first of a series of topics around leadership, because JoEllen, you said something really interesting about the fact that you don't have to have leader in your title to be a good leader.
I think that there's something about, we do believe that somehow we need to be in a position or be granted a position or promoted to a position of leadership to be a leader. And I think anyone within any level of an organization can use leadership behaviors, have leadership skills and leadership insights. And that's equally true, in your family and your, in your volunteer work or your outside of work life.
Yes, and we ran some polls on LinkedIn and got a feel from our network, both our business community, but also the broader LinkedIn community, about what people felt was a key area of interest. And I think it must be because our leadership in the country are doing such a great job, or should I say bad, awful job, that we really are, we're leaderless, really. We're reliable leaderless as a nation. And we've never experienced that before. So it brings up a lot of emotions close to home.
But also what we're experiencing is the antithesis of what I consider inspiring leadership, and leadership that makes me feel secure. And because this isn't around politics, I think what we're looking at is behaviors. And when, there are certain leaders that have been in the world that I do not consider, necessarily politically my color, but I admire them. I admire what they've tried to achieve. I admire that they have clarity. I admire that they have followers. And I think that what we're experiencing now just keeps plunging us into more uncertainty, anger, frustration, apathy. It's going to, all of that.
All from their own mini little groups with their own mini leaders and going off and doing what they want. Which in a business environment isn't good for business, isn't good for morale, it's not good for culture. It implodes, and every organization is a mini. It can be political. It's better if it isn't, but it's an environment where, with great leadership and great, as you said, anyone can demonstrate leadership qualities. It builds that trust and confidence throughout. And I think that's what we want to impart to everyone. As you said, JoEllen, this is a huge topic in the world of the talent journey in an organization and an organization's responsibility towards its people. Leadership is woven throughout, whether you're hiring, whether you're retaining great people and developing them. Another big thing that's out there at the moment is how much people want to be coached and upskilled, and they want to do that from trusted leaders, not just not just some person that talks at them, but they think like Boris Johnson now, he talks, we switch off. So it's important we talk about relatable and approachable leadership in the invite. That's what we spoke about, because ultimately that's what's going to be the key to success and happiness, isn't it, in a working world?
It's something around, you use the word relatable, is that, and I think, again, I know I've said this, probably beating a dead horse, that the patriarchal way of doing things, which still exists in a lot of organizations, creates a big gap. And it's, I'm up here on this pedestal and I'll tell you what to do. And I think that I'm very pleased to see over the 30 years that Impact Factory is going, and you've seen it too, and the way that what people are looking for and how they're looking for it, that you want that gap to almost not exist. Yes, it may hierarchical, be a certain level of hierarchy is necessary. The buck stops with me. But I want that collaborative sense that people can come to me with ideas, with distress, things aren't working well, just with news, so that there's a flow of communication happening, rather than someone standing outside the office door. If I had an office door, going, I wonder if is she in a good mood today?
Yeah. And that's my first experience of leadership. Was I watched my managing director walk through the office, and based on body language, speed of walk, things like that, I would know, oh God, what kind of day is it going to be? So when I worked on my leadership skills, I worked on not creating the mood of the business from my mood. I still had to be authentic, but I could use my words to explain, this is the challenge I'm having, and then conduct myself in a professional, personable way, rather than act out my feelings, which a lot of leaders don't understand the difference with. So, and if we want our people to work in that way of sharing what they are going through, but still being super professional and capable in their jobs, that I think is really important for leadership. To be able to demonstrate that.
Absolutely. It's role modeling. Yeah. We want people to look up to. I'm not saying revere and, idolize, but you just reminded me of my first big job was working for the New York City Ballet, and the managing director, she was the kind of role model leader you want, because I remember going into her office, and, it was definitely open door. It's like, Betty, do you have a few minutes, kind of thing? And she was looking at she was doing some pay rises, and it was hilarious because she said, well, he lives out and he commutes and he's got 2 children and she's just around the corner. So maybe, and I said, and this is the ability to be able to say, Betty, you can't do that. You can't get pay rises on that level. And that I was relatively junior in the organization at that point, and yet I felt free enough and able enough and encouraged enough by the organization to be able to voice my opinion without fear of penalization.
Yeah. And, there's 2 sides to leadership. Well, leadership is leadership, but I see there's 2 areas. One is setting the scene for why we're here, what everyone's role is within that, to give them the skills to achieve their role and be successful. And for them to know that if they put their career and their financial security in the hands of their leader and that organization, that provided the exchange of values is as agreed, all will be well. And then the other side is, we've set the scene, this is what we're doing. The other side is, right, you're empowered, I'm here if you need me. That, to me, is the ideal leadership, but it doesn't always flow that way, does it?
No. And I think you have a poll, don't you? That
I was going to say, we love our sessions to be as interactive as possible. In an ideal world, you will give us your thoughts, questions. We've got a chat box here that allows you to say hello or say your comments or anything that you want to share. And I've just said a quick hi there just to show you how easy that is. So please put any questions or thoughts on there, and JoEllen and I will refer to them, answer questions. But yes, as you said, JoEllen, we do have a poll because these sessions are targeted around what's important to you and what challenges you're facing at the moment or what you'd like to go away with. So we wanted to get a feel of the room of what you think are the most important leadership traits out there. And we picked quite a few because there's a lot of different traits. So leaders should be communicative, aware, vulnerable, approachable, collaborative, and inspirational. Those are the 6 options we used. And currently inspirational is gunning way ahead of the rest of the pack. Approachability and communication also come in. But awareness and vulnerability and collaboration have yet to score. So if you haven't put your thoughts on there, please do. And we'll share those results at the end. Always so interesting. JoEllen, what do you think of those results so far?
Well, in inspiration, I do think that, it's perfect in terms of what we were talking about before, but how uninspiring the current leadership is, sort of across the board. I don't mean talking about the current kerfuffle.
Yeah.
Well, major kerfuffle. I'm just talking about, where are the people who are going to inspire us? Take that breath. We're talking about inspiring us to go beyond ourselves, to do more, to participate, to feel part of our work community, our outside of work community. Yeah. So I'm not surprised. And when we were talking about it, it was sort of, yeah, where's inspiration? Let's put inspiration on that list.
Yeah.
And I do think that it's something about, we need catalysts. I know I do. I know that, I can lie in bed in the morning and think, I've got to get up, but something will inspire me to get up. And it might be a task I have to do or something I want to read, and we have these little inspirations that we need. And when people do that for us, it's exciting. It's like all the juices operating at once.
Yeah.
And I also think around it. Well, me personally, I think around inspiration is someone also acknowledging. When I'm acknowledged for what I do, or I acknowledge other people, I know that that's an inspiring thing. It feels inspiring to do. It's inspiring to receive it as well. So I bunch that together.
I have to say it's tough. I think that, you have leaders as in the owners or the founders or the chief execs, the C-suite, if you like, of a business. And then you have the managers. And it's interesting. I was speaking to somebody earlier this week, telling them about today's session. And they said it's amazing that when there's management training in an organization, leaders won't do management training. It's like they push it out to the people that actually manage people. But managers want leaders that can also support and manage them, and it's that fact that leadership and management for me go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Good managers are good leaders, and good leaders should be good managers.
That's right. And we often find that on our open courses, management training is high up there. But also what I like sometimes is that managers will come on a leadership course because they perceive that it's hand in hand. They need those leadership skills. They need to understand how to reach people in a different way than straight management.
Yes.
So I'm with you on that 100%.
And I'm going to be a little bit controversial against the poll where inspiration is 60% and communication is 20%. I think communication above all else. Yeah. I personally believe that success and failure are two sides of the communication coin. I think that it's about that consistency of communication. It's about the language leaders use. And I think that, it literally, and I don't think anyone teaches leadership communication. I think they might teach them management, they might teach them, but actually the language of how to communicate, how to impart knowledge to different people in different ways, and to be consistent in that so you're trusted.
We worked for an organization years ago, and they had a really fascinating way of communicating. So they wouldn't communicate news until it had anything happening within the org. It's huge, multinational. So until a deal was done or a new system was put in, they didn't let people know what was going on. So people made it up.
Yeah.
And of course, you make up it worse than what it might be. Oh, they must be planning redundancies. And then it would be announced as, oh, isn't this great thing we're doing now? But people had worked up such a state of anxiety and uncertainty
in their own heads,
that the good news didn't actually impact on them. And I think I'm with you on the whole communication thing, because we need to communicate good news, bad news, or news where we don't know what's going on.
Yes.
We don't know. We haven't decided because, and I know this is, again, it goes over and over, your people at wherever level will have ideas. Yeah. Well, have you thought of this? As opposed to all the ideas have to come from me. Yeah. No, that's exhausting. So if I'm not communicating, we're in a bit of a mess here, or this hasn't worked out, I'm not going to get any of those good ideas.
Yeah. And that comes back to them being integral as leaders. And we've got a question from Chris here, which I think picks up on the role modeling element of leadership. Chris says, and hi there, Chris, good to have you on again. Picking up from what you've been saying, how important do you feel it to be that leaders are physically in the same room / place as their teams, not removed to an office that they rarely come out of, i.e. walking the talk, if you will? Do you want to go first, JoEllen, on that one?
we have two things here, Chris, and lovely that you're back again. And I love your input. Okay. Well, first off, we're so much on Zoom these days that we're not necessarily physically in the same place. However, when I've had teams, I've always been in the team. It depends. If you're someone who needs a lot of space around you to do your work, maybe having an office, but I don't know. I kind of like being in the middle of the fray. When I do go into the office, would never see myself as separating me from the team. We are one, really.
I see it from both sides. I see it from both sides because a little story about me is that when I became managing director of the Maine group, there was an office in the corner, and I had taken over from another MD who was in her corner office. So I got the job, I got the office, and I sat there and I thought, I can't do it from here. I need to be out on the floor. So I gave myself a desk out on the floor where I spent probably half of my time. And I found that working amongst the people and walking the talk allowed me to work in the business and with everyone doing what they're doing. But I also found that it actually stopped me from being able to work on the business.
Yeah.
And so what I did, though, was to communicate, to say, guys, I'm going to be in there because this is what I'm doing now. And so it kind of helped people understand you as their leader. And I think that's the other thing, is that trust and confidence of, if my leader isn't here, they're out there doing something that's important for the business, for us, or for them. It could be a day off and it's personal, but people understand. And that trust and confidence then, I think, flows through the whole organization, where we're a trusted group of people who all know we want the best for our business and ourselves and each other.
I don't think you can have a right or wrong here, because if you are in the middle of the fray and you are aloof, not listening, not paying attention, what does it matter? So I think it's still
damaging.
It's still around the fact that you want people to be able to, if you're in an office and that's the geography, pop their heads in and say, can I have a few minutes, Betty? Which is, what we did with the physical space of when I worked at the New York City Ballet, it was cubicle. I mean, it was long corridors with all offices off of them. These were the days when buildings were built with that in mind, where they weren't open plan and they weren't considered that. And yet the atmosphere created and the environment, the invitational type of environment, didn't feel as though Betty needed to be, in the middle of all of us, because she'd wander in and stick her head in and see how people were going. And so, I use that because that was the very first big job I had. I've had others where it wouldn't have mattered. We wanted our bosses tucked away in rooms and preferably lock the door.
And that actually, we spoke about what makes a successful leader, and the 4 phrases we used in the invitation were aspirational, integral, relatable, and a role model. And actually, Chris, your question sort of pulls all those aspects into it, which is, how can a leader demonstrate those qualities without necessarily being physically there?
Yeah.
Because I think there is an argument to be around, but not necessarily shoulder to shoulder, because your role is different as a leader. And actually, if you're sitting amongst the team doing the same thing as them, they're going to be, well, why are you my leader if you're not doing something different? So it's finding that balance, which is essentially what you said, wasn't it, JoEllen? And then it's being perceived as a leader, whether you're there or not. And again, I think that comes from communication. I think that comes from being consistent in your message. And I think it's a given that you have done the organizational strategy, you've fed it through to your people, whether it's directly or through managers, whether you do quarterly or annual updates, all of the touching base on what's going on in the organization, I think, has to be a given. And then how you do that becomes, how good you are as a leader in terms of engaging and facilitating success and happiness in equal measures.
Yeah, I think it's a very long summing up, but I think no. Yeah. It was, I was like, that's absolutely spot on. I think that, again, it's this approachability, this idea that you aren't someone separate, that, you want to, I keep coming back to the sharing the good news and the bad news, the things that show your vulnerability. I mean, vulnerability is a big thing for me because I don't want to be seen as stoical, not just unapproachable, but I can handle it all. I can do it on my own. And actually, I think a good leader, again, anywhere in an organization, is someone who says, I can't do it alone. Yeah. I don't want to do it alone.
Yeah. And I'm not the best at everything. I know what I'm good at, and I know what I need around me to make our organization great, because a leader can't be great at everything. But they can be great. Again, this thing about Boris Johnson is that he's not inspirational. And leaders can, if a leader can inspire somebody to be the best version of themselves, help them identify what they're good at, and then facilitate them to build on that, that is just going to add so much value back into the business, into a team. And it's not just the leader, i.e. the C-suite leader, but the managers. Could be a mentor, could be a buddy, it could be a teammate who's training. But it is something that I think starts with leadership and then flows through, because you can have all these inspirational people internally, but if the leadership are very closed off and they're a closed mindset type of person, eventually it will seep through the organization. The one bad apple really does have, especially when it's the leader, because I guess the higher up, or the more the higher up in it, I hate talking about hierarchy, but the more senior your position, the louder your voice, the louder what you say is. It just impacts far more.
I'd love to maybe have a separate session on what I call systems work, and how everything is a system. I mean, we're a system. The way we breathe is a system. Yeah. We have skeletal system and respiratory system, and organizations have systems too. And it's, when people say, oh, your face doesn't fit or something like that, it's not necessarily around how good you are, it's how you fit into the system. And a healthy system, is very flexible. Anyway, that's for perhaps another time. I think that
I've made a note of that. We'll definitely explore.
I just think it's a larger subject than we've got time for now. But there is, again, something that you said around, the role modeling and the feeling of aspiring. I love that word. That I aspire. People have, been role models that I don't want to be them, but I want to aspire to the qualities that they have. The sense of you feel a sense of trustworthiness when you're in their presence, and that's something I think that, again, it doesn't matter where in an organization you fit. If you have that sense of being trustworthy, you attract people to you, and they want that. They want, what have you got? What do you do? What's your behavior? How do you create that sense of trust?
Yeah. And that's not just about success at work. Actually, it's a sort of sense of self, of sort of well-being, a sense of fulfillment. For managers to be able to demonstrate that they are in the place they want to be. They've got a plan. They've got a journey of their own. But it's all wrapped up into business journey, personal journey, familial journey, whatever their drivers are. For an employee to be able to look in and relate or aspire to, because there's no noise around it, it's very clear. I think that is great leadership. I think that is so powerful. But for a leader to be able to be that clear, they have to have done work on themselves as well.
Yes, there's that self-awareness. And I think certainly from where I sit, and I know from where you sit, these last 2 years has, as stressful as they've been, they've also given us a chance to step back. And because, the very reduced team, in a way, we all had to do everything. And as we're expanding now, thank you very much, Maine Group.
Always a pleasure.
I'm getting to say, I don't want to do this bit anymore, and this bit, and this bit, and this bit, which I took on, and because we all had to take on extra things. And in a way, it's been really useful to step back and say, well, actually, this that I used to do even pre-pandemic, I don't want to do anymore.
Yeah.
Because I think it's taking up too much of my creative time or my ability to step back and see time. So that's been a benefit, I have to say.
And it's that self-awareness, isn't it? Because I'm actually almost the other way around. I, again, didn't like what the pandemic did to our business, how it affected our world, how it affected the way we could add value out to our community. But it allowed me to create this webinar series, and it allowed me to engage with our community in a way that we're able to give insight and add value without necessarily engaging in work. And I've loved it because it's actually fed back full 360 to people knowing us and knowing me and understanding what we're about, which I didn't even realize it would do. Yeah. For me, starting the webinar series was about staying connected and adding value because we weren't finding people jobs, but instead we ended up training and we ended up advising and being more consultative. And actually that's fed back into finding great people even more effectively and efficiently. So, but my problem is that when I go into work and I work from home, obviously because of Omicron, we'd all cut back a bit, but everyone's going to be in 2 or 3 days a week. That's our hybrid approach. When I've gone in, I find myself falling back into old habits of sitting in the middle and wanting to deal with all the day to day, when as a leader, my people have done a fantastic job of that. And I need to stay in the space I'm in and adding value in the way that I, have more successfully and loved when there wasn't an option. Yeah. But now that I've got in and I've tasted the day to day, it's like I'm sitting on a bit of a knife edge, and I know what's right for the business and I know what's right for me as a leader, but something, and again, I need to work through that, because if I don't work through it, what I'll do with the team is create noise and confusion, which won't help them. Yeah. So
I have to say, I am the opposite. I'm kind of, who can take this? Yeah. Does anyone want this? It's like, not quite yet. Okay, I understand, but at some point,
And for me, it's not necessarily the doing; it's the I need to know this, and actually, I should trust the system. If we've set it up and everyone's doing the right thing, I've got to leave them to it, which they are. So it's interesting, with leadership, about being aspirational. And I realized that actually when I created that vacuum and stepped back, the team jumped in so beautifully. I'm in awe. I'm so lucky. I feel grateful. And we really do have a good infrastructure where everyone knows what they're doing and how it needs to be done, which is beautiful to watch. I think for me as a leader, sometimes I don't know how to let go of things. That's what it is. I always know how to let go. So
I think what goes hand in hand to letting go, and you don't want to let go of everything because you still are the boss in the sense the buck stops with you. So you do need to be continually looking at the values, the ethos, is that being maintained? But I think, and it wasn't on my list of things I put down, because maybe it's often thought of as a management thing, but about forgiving people mistakes, allowing mistakes.
Yeah.
People will make mistakes. I make mistakes, and I seem to be making more the last year than I was, have in my whole career. I use the excuse pandemic brain, but I forgot to do that. I didn't do that.
I now look at mistakes as opportunities that didn't necessarily pan out. I think if we're not making mistakes, the chances are we're not pushing ourselves enough. Yeah. And it's understanding why mistakes happen. Was it preventable? If so, how can we make sure it doesn't happen again? Or was it something that happened because we challenged ourselves? And so there are good mistakes and there are bad mistakes, and it's being able to see that as a leader as well.
Yes. And it's also it's a mistake.
Yeah.
I might have said this story before, but I was director of special events at the New York City. That was my last job there, because I sort of worked my way up. And we had a huge gala. We were charging thousands of dollars per ticket. And the guest of honor was the governor of New York.
Right.
And I left him off the invitation. I had to, it cost the company money because we had to redo the invitation. But you know what? Nobody died. Nobody fainted. Nobody was horrified. It was just like, oops. Yeah. I gave myself a far worse time than anyone in the organization did.
Yeah.
Far worse.
Exactly. So a leader doesn't need to pull people up on things, because people are probably giving themselves a hard enough time already. Yeah.
It's a good learning for me in terms of allowing people to have mistakes, because it was just, okay, you made a mistake, JoEllen, fix it.
Yeah. I've got some facts. I love statistics, and we did a poll out on LinkedIn about because I'm looking at leadership and the link around communication. My question was, how can misunderstandings be mitigated through communication? Misunderstandings be mitigated, and I gave the options of leadership training and employee training, and 75% of people said the leadership need to be trained better on communication, and only 25 on employees. And what that tells me is that with great leadership, the employees will follow. And so getting leaders communicating right, getting the right message, using the right language for their people, and understanding different levels of employees, like if you've got C-suite versus D-suite versus the masses, it's the same theme, but it's different language. Something I had to learn actually was, don't go into too much detail. How you tell one group isn't necessarily telling the rest in the same way. But I'll tell you what, I've got some other stats that I just think are so powerful around empathetic leadership. 76% of employees feel engaged with empathetic leaders versus 32% who don't have empathetic leadership. That's huge. On the basis that engagement increases productivity, that's huge. So empathy as a trait. What do you pick up there, JoEllen?
Well, that goes back to approachability. If I have some empathy, my experience mirrors something that you're going through now, even if maybe I haven't gone through it for a while, and I can listen, because we haven't talked about listening. I know that's part of communication, but if I can listen to you and show you that I get it, I get what you're going through, then that empathetic approach, I think, it puts me in a vulnerable place. It acknowledges your vulnerability. And it also means that I'm bridging the gap between me up here and you here. And I think all of that combines to being an empathetic leader. I remember, and I can't remember the author, but it was such a big thing when it came out, which was Leading Through Kindness.
Okay.
And there was a book, and it was, considered, because again, it was coming out of a patriarchal, strictly hierarchical world. And the idea that kindness, open-heartedness, generosity of spirit are all things that make wonderful leaders. Great leaders.
And yet you wouldn't look at a patriarchy and put those traits in with a patriarchy traditionally,
yes.
And those are the things that have to be dispelled.
Because there's there are organizations that can still be extremely hierarchical, because that may be the way they function best, but the leadership can be empathetic, can be approachable, can be trustworthy, can be inspiring and aspirational. All the words that you use, relatable, because relatable and empathy go together. Yes.
And I actually think as a leader, you can ask more of your people if you are approachable and relatable. I think that people will want to do more. You facilitate them, and that ultimately will get you more return of your investment in your people.
If you think about it, we all humans want to feel valued and that they're contributing, that they are worth something.
Yes.
And that's, the workplace shouldn't be the only place you have that, but it's a great place to actually build your esteem if you've got the right leadership. The leadership can actually help you feel as though you're more valuable, and therefore you will work harder or more consciously. All of the things that you want in an organization is you want people engaged in what they're doing, happy about even doing the crap stuff that everyone has to do. But
for the greater good.
Yeah.
And that really leads back to Chris's comment, actually, which was about being in the room, because if you have that awareness and you are around, it's probably easier to spot great things. So what I would say is try to find times when you can be around people, but also check in, find out what's been going on, who's done well. If you have your one-on-ones, make notes of, magic moments that have happened, and then find a way to share that in a group environment, or just to go back to that person and say, listen, just been reflecting, that thing you did was brilliant, and so you can sprinkle that inspiration and acknowledgement of success throughout your leadership.
Yes, I was just, when you said that, I was reminded that we use FIFO as one of the independent review organizations that when people come and do courses and they review us, and when a review comes in, we send it to the home team, we send it to the trainers, so that everyone gets a chance to celebrate the success that it might have only been 2 people who were, the 2 trainers, but it also is the home team, because they were acknowledged, everything was run smoothly, and I was really taking care of all the nice things that get said. And rather than, we'll just keep this, isn't that a nice thing? And then leave it.
Yeah.
Share it out, share it out, share it out.
Yeah, that is so true. Feedback, the feedback loop is so important, because then people want to repeat that and get that feeling again. And that's what makes that self-creating environment. And I don't think anybody wants to be in a micromanaged environment. I think this whole hybrid working world is the complete opposite. People want to be free to work. And what we've seen is they work to a higher level than even organizations expected. So it's giving them the tools, giving them the self-belief, and then giving them the support. That's really going to help them get there. Gosh, JoEllen, thank you so much for your time, and thank you everyone for your contribution on the poll, and Chris for your comments. And this recording will go out to everyone this evening, and I'll be back here next week at 11, back to a traditional legal clinic next week. Completely opposite of leadership, but actually our whole journey here is around retaining, recruiting, and inspiring people in an organization. So that full talent 360 journey. So hopefully every Thursday at 11, everyone can go away with something that can feed back into them and their organizations being the best at achieving that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure. You are literally the knowledge. I can't wait for the next session, and we might look at systems work, or we might look at another trait of leadership. But remember, leadership and retention go hand in hand, and that's one of the hardest things right now. This is, the Great Resignation year, and if you as an organization want to stay ahead, then really think about how you retain, and that it all starts with leadership. So thank you so much, JoEllen, for your insights and your knowledge, and thank you everyone for joining. Bye for now. Bye-bye.